It is proof of something larger than a single mission. Proof that range is not a constant. It is a variable, something that can be stretched, if planners are bold enough, and crews are willing to pay the price. Back in Washington, Hap Arnold understands this immediately. The Regensburg shuttle has not solved the problem, but it has exposed it. The limits of doctrine are not fixed. They are choices, and choices can be changed. Arnold returns to his desk. Reports spread out before him. Fuel consumption, loss rates, enemy response. He begins drafting a memo, not about celebration, but about necessity. The shuttle mission bought time. It did not solve the deeper issue. The bombers still cannot survive deep into Germany, not without protection. In England, the second bomber force finally takes off. Hours late. The target, Schweinfurt. The delay changes everything. The Luftwaffe has already fought LeMay's formation. Now they have time. Time to land. Time to refuel. Time to rearm. Time to prepare. When the Schweinfurt bombers arrive, the sky is waiting for them. The German fighters attack in coordinated waves. Precise. Relentless. They strike again and again. Breaking formations. Isolating bombers. Destroying them one by one. By the time the surviving aircraft limp back to England, 36 bombers are gone. More than 15% of the force. Entire groups are nearly wiped out. The crews who land are not shaken by fear. They are shaken by arithmetic. If every mission costs this much, there will be no crews left by winter. The two missions are analyzed together. Regensburg, a shuttle success. High cost, but survivable. Schweinfurt, a conventional raid. A disaster. The conclusion is unavoidable. Without long-range escort, deep bombing missions will destroy the 8th Air Force. Not all at once, but steadily. Inevitably. Arnold already knew this. But now, he has proof. The question is no longer, can bombers reach deep into Germany? They can. They did. The question is, can they survive doing it repeatedly? And for now, the answer is no. In North Africa, the bombers are already being prepared again. Fuel, ammunition, repairs, everything rushed, everything improvised. At dawn, LeMay briefs the next mission. Targets in southern France. The return leg to England. The crews are exhausted. They have already flown 10 hours, slept poorly in suffocating heat. Now they must climb back into their aircraft and do it again. They do not hesitate. Engines start. Propellers spin. The formation builds once more. The shuttle mission is not over. They take off, heading north, back toward Europe. Meanwhile, in Germany, confusion turns to alarm. Radar stations tracked the bombers inbound. Fighter controllers directed interceptors. Everything followed expectation. Until it didn't. The bombers did not turn west. They turned south, over the Alps, out of radar coverage. Gone. At first, German command assumes deception. A feint. But reports begin arriving. Observers in Italy. Then further south. American bombers crossing into the Mediterranean. The realization spreads quickly. This was not a normal raid. It was a shuttle mission. The implications are immediate. If bombers can operate from the south, then entire regions are no longer safe. Southern Germany, Austria, the Balkans, all now within reach. German defenses had been built around one assumption. Attacks come from the west. Now that assumption is broken. Fighters are redeployed. Radar coverage is stretched. Resources are divided. And division is weakness. Every aircraft moved south leaves a gap somewhere else. Every adjustment creates a vulnerability. Hitler is briefed. He demands answers. How did the bombers cross the Alps? Why were they not destroyed? The answers are incomplete. The bombers were engaged. Many were shot down. But they kept going. That is what troubles German planners most. Not the damage. Not the losses. But the willingness. The willingness to absorb casualties. To achieve a strategic objective. It suggests something dangerous. Something difficult to counter. Depth. Resources. Resolve. Back in Washington, Arnold studies intelligence reports. German defenses are shifting. Fighter units redeployed. Priorities changing. The shuttle mission has done more than damage a factory. It has disrupted an entire defensive system. This is what Arnold wanted. Not destruction alone, but dislocation. He writes another memo. Clear. Measured. Direct. The shuttle mission proves that operational range can be extended through logistics. It also proves that the cost is high. Such missions must be used selectively, only when the strategic value justifies the loss. But most importantly, The mission proves something else: the urgent need for long-range escort fighters. Without them, deep raids will remain costly and unsustainable. Arnold does not use that word lightly. Unsustainable, because losses are not just numbers. They are experience, skill, cohesion. New crews arrive, poorly seasoned, thrown into combat. Many do not survive their first missions. A force can grow larger while becoming weaker. The solution is coming, but not fast enough. The P-51 Mustang, equipped with the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, promises range and performance. It will change everything, but it is not ready yet. Until then, the bombers fly alone, and the losses continue. The Regensburg mission fades from headlines, overshadowed by ongoing battles. New raids, new losses, but inside planning rooms, something has changed. The assumption that bombers must always return home is gone. Now there is a new possibility, a new way to think. What if the destination is beyond the target? What if the mission does not end where it began? This changes everything. Target selection, timing, strategy. The map of war expands. Arnold does not celebrate. He accelerates. More bombers, more crews, more pressure, and above all, faster deployment of long-range fighters. When they arrive in 1944, the air war changes completely. Bombers reach Berlin and return. Losses drop. Momentum shifts. LeMay is promoted. His career moves forward. But Regensburg remains. A small entry in a long record. A footnote that contains something larger. The understanding that war is not a script. It is a problem, and problems can be solved. The crews who flew the mission rarely speak of it. To them, it was just another mission. Longer, harder, but no more terrifying than the others. Years later, historians will study it, debate it, measure it. Was it worth the cost? The answer depends on what you value. Factories destroyed, defenses disrupted, or lives lost. Each measure gives a different truth. Arnold, in later years, reflects on the bombing campaign. He acknowledges the losses, defends the strategy. He does not name Regensburg directly, but it is there, inside the argument. Proof that air power evolves, adapts, extends itself beyond limits. The lesson is simple, but not easy. Limits are often assumptions, not absolutes. Fuel range, escort radius, endurance, all of them can be pushed, if the need is great enough, if the planning is precise enough. The mission succeeded because someone asked a different question. Not, how far can we go and return? But, what happens if we don't come back the same way? The answer was 1,000 miles, 10 hours, and a new definition of what was possible. The war would continue. The losses would mount. The targets would grow deeper. Berlin, Ploesti, Dresden. The bombers would keep flying. Doctrine would evolve. And eventually, the balance would shift. But it began with missions like this, where men flew beyond the edge of certainty and came back with proof. Arnold never called it easy. He never called it cheap. He said only one thing: it worked. And in war, that is the only verdict that matters. On August 17, 1943, American bombers appeared over Regensburg, Germany, at 11:45 in the morning. To German air defense officers watching the sky, the timing made no sense. The bombers had left England more than 6 hours earlier. By every known fuel calculation, they should have turned back long before reaching Bavaria. Range charts said they should have aborted somewhere over occupied France. Escort fighters should have run dry hundreds of miles behind them. And yet the bombers kept coming. More than 230 B-17 flying fortresses crossed Central Europe, struck deep inside southern Germany, and then did something even more astonishing. They did not return to England. After bombing Regensburg, they turned south, crossed the Alps, continued over the Mediterranean, and landed in North Africa. More than 1,000 miles in one direction. For most of the route, they flew without fighter escort. Inside German headquarters, officers demanded an explanation. This mission should not have existed. American doctrine had no standard provision for it. Range itself should have made it impossible. And yet the bombers had done it anyway. Inside the war room at 8th Air Force Headquarters in High Wycombe, England, cigarette smoke hangs thick in the air. Maps cover the walls. Colored pins and threads mark known routes flown by American bomber forces. Each line stretches across the Channel, over Belgium and the Netherlands, and into Germany. And each line stops short. They stop where the escort fighters run out of fuel. They stop before the deepest industrial targets of the Reich. Before Munich. Before Vienna. Before the farthest factories that keep Germany's war machine alive. It is the summer of 1943, and the combined bomber offensive is not yet winning. It is barely surviving. Losses on raids to places like Schweinfurt and Ploiești have become terrifying. Some missions lose so many aircraft that the bombers destroy less than they sacrifice. The arithmetic is starting to turn against the Americans. The planners know it. The crews know it. The enemy certainly knows it. In Washington, General Henry Hap Arnold sits behind a desk buried beneath reports. Aircraft production figures. Loss tables. Intelligence summaries. Weather assessments. Fuel calculations. He commands the entire U.S. Army Air Forces. He answers upward to George Marshall, indirectly to President Roosevelt, and politically to everyone watching the war with impatience and skepticism. Arnold's belief in air power is absolute. He believes that strategic bombing, carried out with enough precision and enough mass, can break the back of German industry. It can shorten the war. It can save lives in the long run. But belief does not create fuel. Belief does not extend escort range. Belief does not bring damaged bombers home. Arnold is not a dreamer. He is a pragmatist with a vision. He flew with the Wright brothers. He survived the age when airplanes were fragile wood and canvas and pilots trusted engines that failed without warning. He understands aircraft not as symbols, but as machines limited by drag, weight, weather, and human endurance. And he knows the one problem strangling his entire offensive. Range. American bombers can reach Germany, but not comfortably. They can reach the Ruhr. They can sometimes reach southern targets. But they do it with shrinking fuel margins and no guarantee of protection. The doctrine is clear. Bombers strike in daylight. They fly in tight formations for mutual defensive fire. They rely on altitude, speed, discipline, and the Norden bomb sight for accuracy. Escort fighters accompany them as far as fuel allows. Then the fighters turn back. The bombers continue alone. Into flak. Into coordinated fighter attacks. Into attrition that no amount of courage can erase. Arnold reads the loss reports the way a banker reads debt ledgers. Every percentage point represents men. Every bomber lost means 10 aircrew. Every mission into Germany now carries the possibility of disaster. And worse, intelligence reports show that German fighter production is rising, not falling. The strategy that is supposed to crush German industry is not yet doing so fast enough. Arnold cannot wait for perfection. The invasion of Western Europe is being planned. The Soviets are bleeding on the Eastern Front and demanding relief. The combined chiefs of staff have committed to weakening Germany from the air before the armies go ashore in France. That means deeper raids, longer penetrations, greater risks. But the central problem remains unchanged. Escort range. The P-47 Thunderbolt is powerful and rugged, but its combat radius is too short. It can escort bombers to the edge of Germany, sometimes a little farther, and then must turn back. The P-38 Lightning has greater range, but it is available in smaller numbers and suffers maintenance problems in the European climate. The aircraft everyone truly needs, a long-range escort fighter that can go all the way and come back, does not yet exist in operational numbers. So the bombers continue flying alone. And every mile deeper into Germany becomes a mile deeper into the killing zone. That is when the idea appears. Not elegant, not easy, but possible. What if the bombers did not return to England at all? What if they struck a deep target in Germany and kept flying south, landing in North Africa instead? A shuttle mission. One way out. Refuel in the Mediterranean theater. Then fly again later, from a different direction. The idea changes everything. It doubles practical reach. It places targets within bomber range that are impossible on a normal out-and-back mission. It forces the Germans to defend against attacks from multiple directions. And it offers Arnold something he desperately needs. A way to bend the limits of doctrine without breaking it. The concept had been discussed before. But discussion is easy. Execution is brutal. Fuel must be pre-positioned in North Africa. Bomb stocks must be ready. Maintenance crews must coordinate across theaters. Weather over the Alps must cooperate. Navigation must be precise. And there can be no real reserve. No friendly airfield nearby. No turning back once the bomb run is complete. If a bomber suffers enough damage to increase drag or burn extra fuel, it may never reach Africa. It may go down in the Mediterranean. At first, commanders in England are cautious. General Ira Eaker, commanding the American bomber offensive in Britain, knows exactly how much can go wrong on an ordinary mission. This would not be an ordinary mission. This would be longer than anything his force has yet attempted. More exposure, more navigation risk, more opportunities for weather, flak, or fighter damage to turn mathematics into death. But Arnold sees something larger. He sees a chance to prove that range is not a fixed prison. That doctrine can adapt. That strategic air power can still do what he promised it would do. If this history matters to you, tap like and subscribe. One man quickly becomes central to the mission. Colonel Curtis E. LeMay, 36 years old, broad-faced, usually expressionless, often chewing on an unlit cigar. He does not look like a visionary. He looks like a man who has been awake too long and has no interest in comforting anyone. LeMay commands the 305th Bomb Group and later the 3rd Bomb Division. His reputation rests on two things. He brings his bombers home, and he gets results. LeMay does not believe in luck. He believes in formation discipline, fuel discipline, precise navigation. He believes that crews get lost not because they are stupid, but because they grow careless. They trust instinct instead of instruments. They drift off course a few degrees at a time and end up paying for it hundreds of miles later. He drills navigation into his crews until it becomes reflex. He believes that bombing accuracy depends on one brutal truth. When the time comes, bombers must fly straight and level, even through flak. If they weave to save themselves, they break formation and ruin the bombing run. His crews hate that truth. They obey it anyway, because LeMay's formations usually suffer lower losses than others. And everyone knows it. LeMay is not merely a commander behind a desk. He flies with his men. He knows what the cockpit smells like after 6 hours in the air. He knows the ache in a pilot's shoulders. He knows what engine vibration feels like when an aircraft is carrying too much weight and too little margin. He understands the mission not just as a theory, but as a physical ordeal. So when the planners choose a lead commander for the first major shuttle raid, they choose LeMay. Not because he is the oldest, not because he is the most popular, but because if the mission can be flown at all, he will fly it. He will not turn back early. He will not allow his formation to drift apart. He will not improvise away discipline in the middle of crisis. If the mission works, he is the man most likely to make it work. The target is Regensburg, home to the Messerschmitt factory producing Bf-109 fighters for the Luftwaffe. A deep strike into Bavaria, well beyond ordinary escort range. The mission profile is simple to describe and terrible to execute. Take off from England. Fly southeast across the Channel and occupied Europe. Strike Regensburg. Then continue south. Cross the Alps. Cross the Mediterranean. Land in North Africa. A total journey of over 1,000 miles. For some crews, more than 10 hours in the air. Longer for stragglers. Longer still for damaged aircraft. LeMay studies the fuel figures. There is almost no reserve. Headwinds can kill the mission. Weather can kill the mission. Navigation mistakes can kill the mission. Any combat damage that increases drag may force a bomber into the sea before it ever sees Africa. And yet the mission is approved. Because in 1943, the Americans no longer have the luxury of fighting only the battles that fit inside the manual. There is no margin for error. Curtis LeMay understands that better than anyone in the room. When he briefs his crews, he does not dramatize the situation. He does not speak about courage or sacrifice. He speaks about numbers. The aircraft will carry maximum fuel. Ammunition will be reduced to save weight. Cruise speed will be carefully maintained to stretch range. Formations must remain stable and efficient so aircraft can benefit from the slight fuel savings created by flying in each other's slipstream. And above all, no one will deviate from the planned route. If an aircraft falls behind, there will be no escort returning with it. It will continue alone, or it will not make it at all. LeMay pauses after explaining this. No one asks questions. The men in the room know his reputation. LeMay does not approve missions he believes are impossible. If he says the numbers work, they trust the math. They do not trust the enemy to cooperate. But that is a different problem. The air crews preparing for the Regensburg mission are not inexperienced. By mid-1943, the 8th Air Force has already learned brutal lessons. Early bombing raids had been flown with optimism and inadequate training. Formation discipline was loose. German defenses were underestimated. Those illusions disappeared quickly. Crews learned that the Luftwaffe does not give up easily. They learned that flak over the Ruhr Valley can fill the sky like a storm cloud. They learned that frostbite at 25,000 feet can cripple a gunner in minutes. That oxygen failures cause men to quietly lose consciousness. That mechanical problems can kill as surely as enemy fighters. These crews are professionals now. They know how to climb into an electrically heated flight suit in the dark before dawn. They know the sound of a healthy engine at altitude. And they know the sound an engine makes when something inside it begins to fail. They know how to clear a jammed 50 caliber machine gun with fingers that can barely feel metal. They know that the navigator's calculations keep them alive, and that the bombardier's accuracy is the only reason any of it matters. The night before the mission, LeMay walks across the bomber hard stance. He says very little. He watches. Ground crews move around the aircraft with practiced precision. Bombs are hoisted carefully into bomb bays. Fuel trucks top off the tanks. Armorers feed belts of ammunition into the gun positions. The smell of hydraulic fluid and aviation gasoline fills the cool night air. Young men move quickly, efficiently. Repetition has turned their work into instinct. Because repetition is what keeps aircraft flying, and what keeps men alive. There is a quiet stillness before a major mission. Not peace. Something heavier. The stillness that comes when everyone understands the risk, but steps forward anyway. LeMay feels it, but he never speaks about it. He returns to his quarters and studies the route again. Takeoff will be at dawn. Weather over the Alps is forecast to be clear. Forecast, not guarantee. He sleeps very little. Few commanders sleep the night before sending hundreds of men beyond the point where turning back is possible. The numbers governing the mission are brutally simple. A B-17 Flying Fortress carries roughly 2,400 gallons of gasoline. At cruising power, the aircraft burns about 200 gallons per hour. On paper, that gives roughly 12 hours of flight time. But theory rarely survives contact with reality. Takeoff burns extra fuel. Climbing to altitude burns more. Formation flying requires constant throttle adjustments. Combat maneuvers increase consumption even further. In practice, a realistic mission duration is closer to 9 or 10 hours. After that, the tanks run dry. The distance from England to Regensburg is roughly 450 miles. A normal round-trip raid would total around 900 miles, already pushing the limits of endurance. But Regensburg is only the halfway point. After the bomb run, the bombers must continue south, across the Alps, where peaks rise above 12,000 feet and weather can change in minutes. Across northern Italy, where German and Italian defenses remain active, then out over the Mediterranean Sea. A damaged bomber forced to ditch there becomes a search and rescue mission with very poor odds. Finally, the aircraft must reach airfields in Algeria and Tunisia, recently captured, barely prepared, more than 600 miles beyond the target. The total distance will exceed 1,000 miles. Flight time may reach 10 hours or more. And there is still no official doctrine for such a mission. No manual explaining how to execute a one-way strategic bombing raid. No standard training syllabus. Every calculation has been made by hand. Every assumption must hold true. Because if the numbers are wrong, men will die. Fuel planning becomes an exercise in brutal compromise. Extra ammunition is removed. Personal gear is left behind. Some aircraft even remove sections of armor plating. Bomb loads are reduced slightly to allow for maximum fuel. The bombers will arrive over the target lighter. That improves fuel economy. But it also means less protection, less defensive firepower. Everything is a trade. Every pound matters. Formation tactics must also change. Bomber formations normally fly in tight combat boxes. Each aircraft overlaps fields of defensive fire with its neighbors. Together, they form a floating fortress of machine guns. But tight formation flying burns fuel. Constant throttle adjustments. Constant corrections to avoid collision. All of it increases consumption. On a mission with zero fuel margin, that could be fatal. LeMay orders wider spacing between aircraft. Loose formations. Less jockeying for position. It weakens the defensive sphere, but it saves fuel. Another trade. Then there is the problem of timing. Weather over England is unpredictable. Fog or low clouds could delay takeoff for hours. If the bombers leave too late, they will arrive over North Africa after dark. and the desert airfields are not prepared for night landings. No illuminated runways. No modern navigation systems. Crews would have to find blacked-out airfields in the desert using only dead reckoning and hope. The plan attempts to reduce this risk. Two separate bomber forces will attack Germany. LeMay's formation will strike Regensburg and continue south. Another bomber force will attack Schweinfurt, the center of Germany's ball-bearing production. The two raids will divide German defenses, force the Luftwaffe to react in multiple directions. But the timing must be perfect. If Schweinfurt is delayed, German fighters will have time to land, rearm, refuel, and then intercept LeMay's force. General Ira Eker approves the mission. Reluctantly, he warns LeMay that weather and timing must cooperate. LeMay acknowledges, but he also understands a deeper truth. Weather rarely cooperates. Timing rarely holds perfectly. The mission will go forward anyway. In Washington, Hap Arnold receives word that the operation is ready. He does not interfere. He has pushed hard for deeper strikes against German industry. If this mission works, it will prove American bombers can reach any target in Europe. If it fails, critics of strategic bombing will have powerful ammunition. So he waits and watches. On the night before the raid, intelligence reports unusual activity. German radar stations have detected the growing concentration of bomber forces in England. They know something is coming. They just do not know where. Fuel trucks make their final rounds. Ground crews check oil levels, tire pressure, oxygen bottles. Armorers inspect ammunition belts for jams. Meteorologists update their weather forecasts. Upper-level winds have shifted slightly, not enough to cancel the mission, but enough to matter. In the darkness before dawn, LeMay walks toward his aircraft. He will fly in the lead B-17, not because he must, because he always does. His crew already knows the routine. They speak little. Checklists are read by flashlight. Engines cough to life one by one, then settle into a deep, steady roar. Across the base, more than 200 bombers awaken. The combined sound rolls across the countryside like distant thunder. There is no turning back now. The mission has not yet left the ground, but it is already in motion. At 9 a.m., the first bomber lifts from the runway. 30 seconds later, another follows. Then another, and another. The sky fills with the rumble of Wright Cyclone engines. Dust and smoke swirl behind the propellers. By the time the last bomber takes off, the first is already climbing southeast toward the coast. Above England, the long process of assembling the formation begins. LeMay circles over the designated beacon. Other bombers arrive and slot into position. Groups stack into wings. Wings stack into divisions. The sky slowly fills with aircraft. It takes time. Fuel is already burning. 30 minutes after takeoff, the bombers are still over England, still forming up. This is normal. But on this mission, every minute matters, because every minute brings them closer to empty tanks. At 9:30 a.m., the formation is finally ready. More than 230 B-17 flying fortresses stretch across the sky. Engines steady, bomb bays loaded, crews silent behind oxygen masks. And ahead of them, Germany. LeMay checks his watch. They are late. The plan called for departure already, but the second bomber force, assigned to strike Schweinfurt, has not taken off. Weather over their bases is worse than expected. Fog, low cloud, visibility near minimums. The timing is slipping, and timing is everything. LeMay faces a decision. He can wait, preserving the coordinated two-pronged attack, but burn precious fuel while circling. Or he can go now, abandon synchronization. Accept that the Luftwaffe will have time to recover between strikes, but keep enough fuel to reach Africa. He considers it for less than a minute. Fuel is not negotiable. He signals the formation forward. The bomber stream turns southeast, over the English countryside, then toward the Channel. Escort fighters, P-47 Thunderbolts, join them near the coast. They will stay as long as their fuel allows. An hour, maybe less. Then they will turn back, leaving the bombers alone. That is the reality of every deep raid. But today, the loneliness will last longer than ever before. The formation crosses the English Channel at 23,000 feet. The temperature outside drops to nearly 40 degrees below zero. Inside the aircraft, gunners flex stiff fingers inside electrically heated gloves. They scan the sky constantly, looking for shapes. Small, fast, deadly shapes. Below them, The channel stretches gray and cold. It looks close. It is not. Over France, the first flak appears. Black bursts bloom in the sky. Clusters of explosions hanging like dark flowers. The bombers do not maneuver. They fly straight. Formation holds. Flak is dangerous, but predictable. Accuracy is imperfect. Some bursts are too high, some too low, but not all. One bomber takes a hit in the wing. Another loses hydraulic pressure. A third trails smoke from an engine that quickly fails. The propeller feathers. The aircraft falls slightly behind, but stays in formation. The crew does not abort. Not yet. Over eastern France, the P-47 escorts reach their limit. They rock their wings in farewell, then turn back toward England. The bombers continue alone. Now it is just altitude, formation, and guns. German radar has tracked them since the coast. The Luftwaffe is ready. Fighter controllers guide interceptors into position. The first enemy aircraft appear near the German border. Bf-109s, FW-190s. Fast, climbing hard. They do not attack immediately. They assemble. They organize. They prepare. Because German doctrine is clear. Mass the attack. Strike in groups. Overwhelm the formation. The first attack begins near Stuttgart. Enemy fighters dive from 12 o'clock high. The most dangerous angle. Tracers cut across the sky. Bombers shudder as rounds strike metal. Gunners fire back in long bursts, trying to disrupt the attack before it closes. Inside the fuselage, empty shell casings pile at the gunner's feet. The smell of burned powder fills the air. One bomber takes a direct hit in the cockpit. The pilot collapses instantly. The co-pilot grabs the controls, fighting to keep the aircraft level. The bomber slips out of formation. Fighters swarm it immediately. Within seconds, it is falling, trailing fire, spinning toward the earth. No parachutes. Another bomber loses 2 engines on one wing. It cannot maintain altitude. It drops behind. The formation moves on. There is no choice. Alone, the aircraft becomes a target. It does not survive long. LeMay's aircraft is hit. Rounds strike the wing. The tail. Fuel begins leaking from a punctured tank. The flight engineer reports the loss. LeMay calculates silently. They still have enough to reach the target, to continue south. Barely. There is no reserve now. None. The formation presses on. More attacks. More losses. The defensive guns keep the fighters cautious, but not enough to stop them. The math of attrition continues. The Luftwaffe can break off and return. Rearm. Refuel. Attack again. The bombers cannot. They can only move forward. Regensburg appears ahead. Factories along the Danube. The target. Flak intensifies. The sky fills with explosions. The bombers enter the killing zone. And then, they fly straight and level. Bomb bay doors open. Cold air floods the aircraft. Bombardiers lean into their Norden bomb sites, making final corrections. Speed steady. Altitude steady. No evasive action. Every instinct tells the pilots to turn, to dive, to escape. They do not, because accuracy demands stillness. The bomb run lasts 2 minutes. It feels like forever. Then, bombs away. The aircraft lurch upward as the weight disappears. Explosions ripple across the factory below. Smoke rises. Fires begin. The target is hit. The formation turns south. No time to assess damage. No time to celebrate. The mission is only half complete. Ahead, the Alps. Snow-covered peaks rising toward them. The bombers clear the mountains, but not by much. Any aircraft with damage, any with failing engines, any burning too much fuel, will not make it. Some turn back, hoping to crash land somewhere survivable. Most are captured or killed. The rest continue over northern Italy, then out across the Mediterranean. Fuel gauges drop into the red. Pilots lean fuel mixtures to the edge of failure. Engines begin to cough. Some crews manually transfer fuel between tanks, balancing weight, stretching range, squeezing every possible mile from dying engines. Then, land appears. North Africa, a thin line on the horizon. Navigation becomes everything. There is no fuel left for searching. Miss the airfield, and the aircraft is lost. LeMay's navigator confirms the heading. The formation begins its descent. Engines sputter. Some bombers land with less than 10 minutes of fuel remaining. Others roll to a stop as engines die completely. Out of the original force, 122 bombers reach North Africa. 24 are lost over Germany. Others are scattered, damaged, or gone. LeMay climbs out of his aircraft, lights a cigar. His expression does not change. The mission was possible. Barely. The airfields in North Africa are not ready for this. Not really. They were told bombers might arrive. They were not prepared for over 100 damaged aircraft, many nearly out of fuel, many carrying wounded. The runways are rough. The heat is brutal. Fuel is limited. Medical facilities are overwhelmed. Ground crews begin working immediately. Wounded are carried out first. Medics move from aircraft to aircraft. Some gunners have been unconscious for hours. Some wounds, frozen at altitude, begin bleeding again in the heat. Medical tents fill quickly. Aircraft are inspected, not for record, for survival. Hydraulic lines are patched, tires replaced, engines checked. Some aircraft cannot be repaired. They will not fly again. Fuel becomes the immediate crisis. There are not enough trucks. Fuel is pumped by hand from barrels. Slow. Exhausting. Under temperatures above 100 degrees. Pilots help. Everyone helps. There is no alternative. LeMay walks the flight line. He does not ask how men feel. He asks one question. Can you fly again? Most say yes. Some lie. He knows they are lying. He accepts it. Because the mission continues. That evening, reports are sent back to England. The target was hit. The mission succeeded. The shuttle concept works. Losses are described as acceptable. A word that means something very different to the men who flew. In Washington, Hap Arnold reads the report. Twice. Then picks up the phone. Calls Eaker. Can it be done again? Eaker hesitates. The Luftwaffe now understands. The surprise is gone. The logistics are strained. Fuel is limited. But, yes, once, maybe twice more. Arnold does not celebrate. He understands what has happened. The mission did not solve the problem. It proved something else. That the limits of war are not always fixed. Sometimes, they are stretched. At the cost of fuel. At the cost of machines. And at the cost of men willing to fly beyond the point where turning back is possible.